Okay, so in this video, we're going to take a look at creating a 2D game board. And we're going to use a 2D array to kind of store the information or the state of the game. So you probably want to be familiar with using 2D arrays before you take a look at this. So I'm going to start by creating an array using a list comprehension. So you can use a for loop if you'd like. I'll make it 8 by 8, and but list comprehensions are a great thing to use. They're a really quick way to build up arrays. So there's a quick little list of 8 elements. This n element here I can change to be whatever I want it to be. Make it a series of ones. And if I want it to be a 2D array, then I can actually use something that looks like this. So I'm going to multiply that by 8, and now I have a 2D array, excuse me, 8 by 8. So I'm just going to pull this back into processing. That's going to be a global variable that we're going to use in our array. And so I will create a screen of 800 by 600 um, and what I'm going to do is I'll loop through the array and kind of draw the array just as a series of rectangles. So my loop first. First of all, I'm going to loop through the grid by row. So for row and grid, so this is going to pull out an array of 8 elements, kind of the 1D array that we looked at first, and then so I will loop through each of those elements in each row, and those will be columns. And I'll draw a rectangle as I'm doing that. So I'm not sure where that rectangle is going to be just yet. I'll make it a fixed width, and I'll make it a square. My screen's 800 by 600, so I want it to fit on the screen. So roughly 600 divided by 8. So I'll just make it 70 wide, so that'll take up kind of about the right size. So now the trick is going to be that as I'm looping through the array, I want the rectangle to be positioned in the correct location. So when I first start, I'm probably just going to start in the upper left corner. So I'll just create 2 variables there. They're integers, 0, 0, upper left corner, and I want, as I work my way through, I want them to move across the game board. To begin with, I want them to move. I'm going to kind of scan through, moving from left to right, because I'm doing the columns. I'm kind of looping through the columns at this point, so I want each of these squares to kind of move right each time I draw one. So we'll start by drawing at the 0 position, and then we'll move right by the amount, by the width amount of the square. And that should get us kind of a row drawing on the screen. Now it's kind of extending off the screen. This should be, maybe that's a 9, I'm assuming, rectangle 9, and it's not moving down. We need to move down. So we'll move down when we finish that row and we start doing the second iteration of the outer loop. We'll move down. So you'll see it move down here. Oh, so my count was a bit off. But anyways, so it's moved down. It hasn't reset back to here, so I need to do that as well. So I need to bring it back to there. So that should be getting us pretty close. We've got 8 by 8 grid being drawn on the screen, and now we just want to, modify it based on the contents of the grid. So I'll change a couple of positions within the grid. We have 1s everywhere, so I'll just change I'll change the upper left and the bottom right corners to -1s. And when we're inside, about to draw the rectangle, I'll check to see if the value, which is in the accumulator variable, the column, I'll find out if it's a -1. If it's a -1, maybe I'll fill it to be red. And if it's not, then I'll just fill the white color that we've been seeing. So we should see top left should be red and bottom right should be red, and everything else is white. So we've got, we've got a 2D array. The data from the array is informing how we're drawing the game board. We've got a good little system to, build many different types of games that are based on this idea. We maybe want to go one step further and be able to click something and have something happen. So we'll go down here. I'll start off by creating a mouse pressed function, which is going to so this function is called every time the user clicks with the mouse, and the information that we kind of are provided in this function is where the user clicked, and it's stored in mouse X and mouse Y. So if I click up here somewhere in that first cell, I'll see it down here. So if you remember, the width is 70 by 70. I kind of click somewhere in the center there at X35, Y32. Now I can use some integer division here. So I can just divide my click position by the width of the cell. I'm dividing it by 70. So in this case, 35 divided by 70 in terms of integer division, the result would be 0.5 as a float, but we just kind of truncate that decimal portion, and we're left with 0, 0, which is actually quite handy, because this is 0, 0 when we reference it using our indexes for our array. So if I just rerun this, we'll see that we're calculating the positions of the clicks nicely. So there's the X variable is first, and you see it's kind of counting up properly, and click down here, and that was 7, 7. So so let's just modify our array, the grid, based on that. So I'll modify it. Now, remember, we're kind of flipped around in terms of our X and Y coordinates at this point. So when we're thinking of our 2D array, the first index is referring to the row, which is effectively a Y coordinate. So this is my kind of way to address my grid. And what I'll do is I'll just flip it using multiply by -1. So because I was checking up here, from -1 was going to be a red, and a 1, I guess, anything else is going to be a white. So now I should be able to turn these off and on as I flip through. And of course, this information is, this is happening because I have the all this, all these positions, all these 1s and -1s stored correctly in the various positions within the grid.